Hello again, everybody. It is that time of the week. That's right, Dallas Cowboys overtime, even though we are technically in the NFL's off season. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Matt Kingle, joined by my good friend, Mr. NFL savant, Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr. I want to thank Window Nation for sponsoring this and every other episode of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. Clarence, before we get into this week's topics, you were nice enough once again to lay out for us. We are going to address the tragedy that did occur yesterday during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. At least one victim has been confirmed dead from a shooting that has claimed multiple victims in terms of potentially life-threatening injuries, many of whom are children. I don't know what to say about this other than what's been said a billion times. We do absolutely nothing about it. I'm curious your thoughts on this because you lived in Texas longer than I have. I am not anti-gun. I'm certainly not, because everybody I know who are friends of mine who are gun owners are responsible gun owners, all of them. They take it very seriously. They respect the power of a firearm and the responsibility that comes with it. However, I do think we are kidding ourselves if we don't at least acknowledge someplace in this discussion that easy access to firearms is not a major part of this, what has become now a national problem and has been for many years. I don't think they're going to do anything about it for all the reasons that have been laid out for years now. The gun lobby, constituents who will be motivated to return to the polls, even if they hadn't been before, if anybody threatens to take their guns or anything along those lines. But I do think one thing that is lost in this argument is that nobody rationally wants to discuss that easy access to firearms is a part of this problem.
Yeah, there's no question about that, and it's always the guns. I mean, you can limit the guns, limit access to guns. I mean, there are responsible drivers, okay, but we still have to go through something to get a driver's license. You still have there's an age requirement. I mean, as of right now, these were teenagers. As we're understanding, I was listening to police briefing at 10:30 up in Kansas City, and there was two juveniles. Kids should not have guns. People with I mean, there should be some things you go through to limit the access to guns. And again, it's a shame because you can't go anywhere. I was talking to my son last night. It's like, people are afraid to go to any type of mass public event because you don't know what's going to happen. Whether it's the Super Bowl or it's wherever, certainly certain events, they have restrictions on who can get in and stuff like that and what you can take in. But any type of, just being on the Las Vegas Strip, I was at the Super Bowl last week, just walking down the strip and said, there's so many people, so many parties, and, there's so many people gathered, anything could happen. You wonder, when's going to be the next event. And again, this was supposed to be a celebration, and it turned tragic. And there are kids out there who have nothing to do with this, who shouldn't be a part of this, who have suffered, who are, it's going to be a stain on their lives forever. You mentioned it earlier, half of the victims are under 16.
Yeah, they're kids.
Half of the victims are under 16. So it's a tragedy. And I don't know, people are going to say, well, this is going to be the end of these public parades. Why do you have to end the parades? Why can't we just control the guns? But we do everything we in our power to limit whether it's going to parades or limit access to airports or games, but we don't do anything about the guns.
No, you mentioned something about being in Vegas, and I don't know if this has, like when you were in Vegas or been in any other public event where there's thousands and thousands of people, does it cross your mind now? Like when you go to places, are you doing any of this stuff? Is your head on a swivel, Clarence?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it's like subconscious now. You have to keep your head on a swivel. It was funny because I was reading some of the stories, and this gentleman was at Kansas City, and he and his daughter were there, and they went to hide, and his daughter, who's an elementary age student, told him, "This is just like our training." We're having in school. It's like it's these kids are so
conditioned.
Conditioned, and it's so much part of the lives. Now I've had no training. Okay, I've had no active shooter training. Okay, I'm an adult. We have had no, but the kids have. We've had no active shooter training. They know how to act and understand what they're supposed to do. We don't.
No, and even you just saying that active shooter training, like I don't think, I'm not sure my junior in college self would have been like, what the hell is that? What does that even mean? And now it's just part of our lexicon. We don't address the other problems. Those are, we can't talk about it. We don't address those problems. But the other things, yeah, okay, we'll do that. We could talk about this forever, and we're not going to, but I think you and I are kind of, and I'm not even sure there is a solution to some of this. The cat's out of the bag. And I've read any number of stories about this. Once this happened, certainly the one up in Sandy Hook with all those elementary school kids. Once we didn't do anything after that, then we're totally conditioned for it.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in New Orleans at the Final Four a couple of years ago, I was like, man, I'm a sitting duck. If someone wants to go to town, nothing is going to stop them. And I think too many people who are involved in this process will say, well, I guess that's just part of it. Screw it. Well, we should do something, because right now doing nothing clearly is not working.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, that'll work. Okay, let's move on to a different subject, and that is the Dallas Cowboys did do something this week. They finally hired a defensive coordinator, our old friend, Mike Zimmer, a longtime former assistant with the Dallas Cowboys, is back for a second run. You and I have known Mike for a long time. Former head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, spent a year off or two from football. Wasn't sure if he was going to be back in. The Cowboys reached out to him along with every other candidate, and he's back. Clarence, I know you probably hadn't seen him in a little while. Why do you think this is a good fit?
Familiarity, relationships. That's what it's about. I mean, this is about his familiarity with the Cowboys organization. Steven and Jerry with the Cowboys for 12 years, from 94 to 2006.
Yeah.
He's been gone for almost 18 years, but the familiarity hasn't changed. He had a relationship with Mike McCarthy from their days competing against each other, NFC North, when he was with the Vikings, and McCarthy with the Green Bay Packers. So there's some comfort there. But make no mistake, no one's comfortable around Zimmer, right? This he's gruff, he's tough-minded, his personality is different. Listen, we love Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn was more of a player's coach. He wore Jordans. He was a rap music aficionado. Zimmer's old school. He's gonna be a different he's gonna be a shock to the system for Michael Parsons, for Trevon Diggs, for Mike McCarthy, and
do you think, but Clarence, let me time out real quick. Given Mike's age and the fact that he's lasted as long as he has, do you think, because I remember covering the team when he was the defensive coordinator for a year or two under Bill Parcells, and I would hear these anecdotes and these stories about how he coached those guys. And I'm like, I mean, 4-letter words were his friends. And I'm like, do you think he's still doing that today? Or do you think, given the fact that we're in a different era of player, do you think he's modified that at all?
He's evolved. We talked about that yesterday. He's evolved, but as you said, great players like to be coached, and they want to be coached hard. And he's gonna. What gets him grumpy is being undisciplined and not being fundamental. And not doing your job. And this Cowboys team, was undisciplined with the penalties and stuff like that. He understands the social media and all the other stuff, but you said 4-letter cuss words. He's more of a 12-letter cuss word guy, right? 12-letter cuss word guy. So he is who he is. I mean, he understands you got to coach different players different ways, but at the end of the day, when you're undisciplined, offsides, he's going to let you know, and he's going to let you know on certain terms. So, that's who he is, and that's not going to change.
Do you think we'll see anything dramatically different under Mike than we did under Dan? Like, there's one.
Well, I think
I will. Okay. The one thing that I right off the page, I don't think he would ever do what Dan did to start the playoff game against Green Bay when he went away from dramatically what he had been doing during the regular season. Now, I know matchups did it, and I get that, but I don't think Mike would ever do that. Other than that, what do you think we'll see different under Mike than we did under Dan?
Well, I think you're going to see more traditional linebackers. You won't see safeties playing linebacker, number one.
Okay.
You know, and so I mean, he's historically a 4-3 guy. Certainly went to 3-4 under Bill Parcells. You know, so he understands being multiple, can handle multiple schemes, and you know, he said, "Yes, I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel." You know, what you gonna do with Michael Parsons? Well, he will let Michael be Michael. You know, but obviously he's gonna make the defense, you know, be more disciplined and play together, and certainly, hopefully, at the end of the day, have more success. Because at the end of the day, he's back because of relationships, but the charge is the charge. Mike McCarthy is in a win or bust season. Jerry Jones said they're all in. The goal is the Super Bowl. That's why he's here.
The line you mentioned, the linebackers. I've got to think the linebackers that he wants are not here. I got to think he's got to find two. One in the draft. Now, granted, they did draft one last. Demarion Overshown, who blew out his ACL in training camp. He's going to be part of the equation coming back from that injury. But I've got to think he wants at least 2 to 3 new linebackers. Is that number right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you got to overhaul that linebacking corps. Certainly, you got to get real linebackers that are not undersized guys. And so, you know, obviously, you know, to Quinn's point, you know, most of the game is a passing game. You're in Nickel. You know, your sub packages more you are in your base package, but when it's time to go in base package, you need base package players. You know, and the Packers ran 12 personnel and teams just loaded up with tight ends against the Cowboys sub package. You need guys who can hold up when it's time to hold up.
Let's move on to a different topic, and that is the Super Bowl, the last football game played of the 2024 season. It was a fun game. Well, the second half was pretty fun, certainly the overtime. You got a chance to go out to – how many nights were you out there, Clarence? 2?
No, I was Thursday through Sunday.
Thursday through Sunday? You didn't go to the game, did you? You took off Sunday afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a fun week, and a lot's to be said about a Super Bowl in Las Vegas, the first ever. Clarence, first thing right off the bat, is there any chance at all, do you think Las Vegas goes to the leader, the head of the board, when it comes to Super Bowl rotation cities? Because typically that had been Miami, Tampa, kinda, New Orleans for sure, and Arizona. Now I think Los Angeles and Vegas are into that equation, and I think, and I'm curious, I think Vegas goes to the top. Do you?
Well, I don't know about the top, but it's in the rotation. I mean, it's going to be New Orleans, it's going to be Miami, it's going to be, I guess Tampa's still a part of that mix, but I mean, New Orleans, Miami, San Francisco, LA, in Vegas. That's going to be rotation.
How was the Super Bowl? You know, normally one of the real criticism that I had heard of the Super Bowl that was in New York was the problem with it was New York is so big, you didn't even know the Super Bowl was going on because it's New York and there's 8 billion things going on. 8 million things are going on in Vegas, but the consensus I heard was it ran the town. Did you was it Super Bowl everywhere in Vegas? As much of a shock to your system as Vegas can be, and then, you know, just a stimulation overload, was the Super Bowl the thing?
Oh, there's no doubt. You know, it took over Vegas, and it was, I don't know, I guess I'm saying unseasonably chilly, but it was chilly, you know, but no, it was all about the Super Bowl, and it was great. I mean, you know, it was funny because I heard one people say that the NFL liked the Super Bowl, but I don't know if the casinos like the people being there, because the people that normally come to the Super Bowl were regular people. They weren't necessarily gamblers. And
right.
Normally when the Super Bowl somewhere else, you got gamblers coming to Vegas to spend the weekend in Vegas gambling. So I don't know if there's many gamblers that were there to spend money at the casino as there, you know, normally is, because there's so many normal fans were there for the game. But it was a great weekend. You know, when I brought this topic up, I was certainly talking about the Super Bowl, but I don't know if you heard the chirping from the Cowboys. There was, listen.
Yeah, I actually want to get into that. Jordan Love sitting there hamming it up with Micah Parsons. Yeah. DeMarcus Lawrence with his dog. DeMarcus Lawrence had the weakest, and I love DeMarcus Lawrence, but his answer was awful.
Yes, I mean,
whatever show it was, why they lost.
And then CD finally addressed his mom, and you know, it was just it was were on Radio Row. I didn't see any of them. I don't know what the hell I was doing. But anyway, I wasn't working. But anyway, but
you went out there on your own dime, so that's cool.
Yeah. But the Cowboys were everywhere. Micah's holding court, and obviously you talked about him. Talking to Jordan Love, how he killed the Cowboy defense. He also was the one who finally asked CeeDee Lamb the question about your mom. Why are your mom ripping that?
I was sitting there thinking about it. Let's go one by one.
Okay.
Jordan Love is sitting there hamming up with Micah Parsons. 3 weeks ago, Jordan Love is kicking Micah Parsons' ass all over the AT&T Stadium field. And I'm like, can you imagine Clarence Johnson sitting there hamming it up with Larry Bird about how they just ran his butt out of town in the finals? Or Michael Jordan sitting there on TV chewing it up with Isaiah Thomas about getting his butt kicked in the East Finals, or any of those scenarios.
No, too much bad blood. No.
Oh, that was real bad blood back then. Now everybody's just buddies and they're friends and they're all rich and playing football, basketball, kickball, or whatever else.
I was just thinking about this other night, and I don't know any active players who've had live podcasts who talk about other players. And I was thinking of Micah and Draymond Green. And he started.
Draymond has done
different, but he has a live podcast where he talks about players and different things, opponents, teammates, whatever else. And like, why does Micah have a podcast talking to Jordan Love? And a lot of people are going crazy about it, but it's the way of the world. It is what it is now. And I don't think it took away from his performance. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care, doesn't want to win, but it's just something we have to accept. But yeah, Micah's talking to Stroud and Micah's talking to CD, and Micah's talking, about the Cowboys and how they, have to have a different attitude and have to change the culture. And part of the culture, you having a podcast.
Oh, I don't, one of our friends, Calvin Watkins of the Dallas Morning News, wrote about it like this. And I think he's right. And you and I have known Calvin forever. And I think other people have pointed this out. They'll never say it because Micah Parsons is too good. And when you're that good, you can do what you want. But to sit here and say that those kinds of shows and those kinds of platforms, and that's a problem. It is. It's just a problem. Now, it may not be a big one, but it's an issue. And when you're going out there and laying an egg in the playoffs, it's a bad look. To me, it's no different than Tony Romo going with a couple of teammates to Cabo during the bye week. Is it the reason they lost? No. Doesn't look good. And you and I both know Tony Romo would have gone nowhere had Bill Parcells been his head coach. And this, again, it was a different era. It's a different time. But to sit here and think that all those things aren't a problem. I remember one of the Cowboys telling me one time, he said, it's not a problem talking to you guys, me and you. The problem is it's all you hear about when you go home. Right. You hear from your girlfriend, your wife, your mom, your brother, your sister, aunt, uncle, cousins, friends. Everybody floods you with it. And it becomes a giant pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if no one's going to tell Micah Parsons to stop because he's Micah Parsons. But to me, this kind of stuff, CeeDee Lamb's mom, whatever else, this is a problem. And we're kidding ourselves when we think it's not.
No, there's no question about that. So, I don't know where it goes. And if you can put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. But this is, the era of sports we live in, and they have to handle it. But, again, when I talk about the drama, you brought up DeMarcus Lawrence and the Cowboys were tired, and then you have Brandon Cooks and coming on and saying everybody's tired. Where's that coming from? You can't.
Why would he say that? Like,
I don't know. People. The problem here is that there's no explanation to the Cowboys' performance, and we're asking people to come up with explanations, and so they're just trying to say something that could make sense in their mind because it remains baffling. It's I don't think the Cowboys can even explain themselves. It's one thing to lose, and so, but it's one thing to get blown out, get your doors blown off when you played so well, and no one can put up. You can talk about, they were tired. You can talk about whatever, but no one can explain that performance because Green Bay is not that much better than the Cowboys. They just
27-0 in the second quarter.
They just laid an egg, and no one can explain it. So you're trying to come on reasons, and that's the reason he came up with, and so yeah, he's getting his butt kicked over there, and then you got Emmitt Smith.
Well, hang on, let me ask you this. Oh yeah, no. You mentioned. I'm glad you did because I hadn't written that one down.
Yeah.
Say the Emmitt Smith line. Go ahead. Say what Emmitt
I
Smith.
can't remember the line. I just know
he basically said, "I would have fired Mike McCarthy."
Yeah, well, yeah, he definitely said he would have got rid of Mike McCarthy,
That.
and he talked about this team not having it or something inside to win and stuff like that. So yeah, it's crazy. Everybody's frustrated. I talked to Darren Woodson, and he was on there talking about this team, and they don't have what it takes. There's something with the leadership or whatever else, they don't have what it takes to get it done. And so, again, the Cowboys were all over Radio Row talking about this season.
But Clarence, let me ask you this, and then they'll go break. What do you think sounds better? An explanation or the player standing in front of the microphone, whether it's Micah Parsons in front of a podcast, DeMarcus Lawrence on ESPN or the NFL Network, whomever, just sitting there saying, look, there is no explanation. We just got smoked. I'm not sure either one of them sounds good because I'm not sure there really is an explanation because everybody got embarrassed.
The problem is that when you get on these shows, people want you to have an answer and they want you to come up with an answer, and you're trying to cooperate and come up with some rhyme or reason of why it happened. And again, I know DeMarcus, and I know he laid it all on the field, and he was as healthy as he's been ever. And I just think he was just trying to come up with some answer, some reasoning to something that's inexplicable, and that's what it was. It's inexplicable.
No, and the problem is, if you're a fan, both of them are bad, right? Both answers stink. Well, the outcome is the outcome.
There's no good answer to that. You can't explain it, and nothing is acceptable. There's nothing acceptable.
Nope.
And this is why people want their pound of flesh. They want heads to roll. Everybody has to go. Well, then when everybody goes,
Clarence, let's be real clear. They're not comfortable out there, and this time they're all in. Okay, we've got more to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime, but first, let's hear from our friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you very much, Window Nation. Back here on StarTelegram.com for Cowboys Overtime. Clarence, you sent me the topics here, what we're going to talk about. So I am kind of curious to pick your brain on this one. What can the Dallas Cowboys learn from the Kansas City Chiefs? Clarence, the floor is yours. I have no idea about this one.
Well, number one, they can't get Patrick Mahomes. Okay, that's not on the table. Okay,
Let me write that down.
He's one of one.
Let me get my pen. Okay, go ahead. Can't get Mahomes. All right, go ahead.
Get a defense.
How about get a defense tackle?
Get a defense. Get a defensive tackle for sure. I've always said you cannot be a great defense without a horse in the middle, without a big guy in the middle, dominant player in the middle of the defense. It's one thing to have edge guys, but you also need a guy in the middle. And the Cowboys have not had a dominant guy up the middle in forever.
You know what? Jay Ratliff, when Jay was in his probably 3-year prime at tackle, that's probably the last guy they had who was a real dude in the middle.
Yeah, you got to have a dude in the middle, and Chris Jones makes it, but it wasn't just Chris Jones. The cornerbacks were awesome.
Yep.
The linebackers. I mean, forced fumbles. I mean, we know this 49ers offense. We've seen them put 42 points on the Cowboys, and what they did too. What they did to Deebo Samuel. What they did
my God, they neutered him.
What they did to Kittle.
Kittle was nuts. George Kittle, even before he got injured, which was way, way late in the game, I couldn't believe how they took George. No one should be blaming Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy did as well as he could against that defense. The fact that they took George Kittle out of that game the way they did, to me, was their biggest win. I mean, because he is as good, maybe not as good as Travis Kelce, but he's in that conversation. And you didn't even know he was in the game.
No,
that's how well Kansas City defended.
Yeah, like I said, so Patrick Mahomes is Superman. He did what, but the defense set the table. The defense allowed them to come back. You go back, what they did to Lamar Jackson. I mean, that
Yeah.
defense showed up every week in the playoffs. And so when I talk about the Cowboys and I talk about everybody, Dak, let your defense set the tone. Your defense needs to keep you in the game. I mean, Patrick Mahomes threw an awful interception. It didn't matter. Okay,
Didn't matter.
they got no points off of it.
Yep.
Okay, because the defense showed up and held up, and that you have to win. You got to stop the run. McCaffrey had a couple of their first drive.
He was good.
He was good. In the second half, that running stopped.
No, but you're right. But they still figured out a way. As a receiver, he's old school. He reminds me of some of the receivers, running backs who came out of the backfield as pass catchers the way they did in New England when Kevin Falk was there for 100 years, or certainly I'm going way back here, the San Francisco days when Roger Craig came out of the backfield and guys couldn't deal with him. He was a matchup nightmare, and McCaffrey held his own. But you're right, as a runner, they completely took him away in the second half.
They took him away in the second half. But so, again, I just think that, of course, the Cowboys, we got Zimmer, and listen, we love Dan Quinn and what he did. But you have to bow up against the run. You have to show up when it matters most. The problem with the Cowboys defense often, you go back to the Miami game when Dak and offense came back and took the lead, the defense let Miami go right down the field and score.
They did.
You have to be able to show up in the fourth quarter and shut it down.
You need Cowboys have solid corners, really solid corners. They have, I would say, above average safeties. They have quality safeties. Their linebackers are not good. Micah Parsons is a dynamic, do whatever he wants. I don't know how much longer they can rely on DeMarcus Lawrence just because of his age. I mean, you're right. He came in healthy, and the playoffs played. This is as healthy he's been all season. He's great. But he's an edge guy, and he was awfully good against the run. But until they get that guy in the middle who's at least pretty good. Jonathan Hankins he's okay. Mozzie Smith, he better show something this year or he's going to be in trouble. And they have nothing at linebacker. And until they get those problems solved, then the problems are the problems. Okay, you wrote this down, and I think this is a fun conversation to have. Tom Brady has retired. Patrick Mahomes is the man. And forget Tom Brady comparisons. I think Patrick Mahomes needs to be in a different conversation, and that is Tiger Woods. That's mine, obviously not yours. And Michael Jordan. Are we looking at this generation's Michael Jordan?
Well, when I brought that up is like the thing that set Jordan apart was nobody ate on his watch. And everybody wanted LeBron's the greatest, but Steph has as many titles as LeBron. Okay,
yeah,
as many titles as LeBron during LeBron's era. Okay,
yeah. When
Jordan was at his best, nobody else ate. Okay, even Magic and Bird went back and forth. But when Jordan was at his best, he won everything. And
Karl Malone, Sean Kemp, Gary King, John Stockton,
all the great
Clyde Drexler, Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing. None of those guys, all Hall of Famers, none of them got a title when Michael Jordan started his run.
Right.
Now Akeem did and Drexler did.
When Jordan was not playing.
But Jordan wasn't playing ball. And there's a huge difference there with Mahomes. The only guy who's beat him, Brady got him twice, Burrow got him once. And eventually you play enough, you're going to get got. But the way they call games now and the way the quarterback is allowed basically not to be touched, and the way receivers now get the benefit of the doubt on calls, this guy can write a number. I don't know who's stopping him.
Yeah, I don't know. And so I look at the great quarterbacks in AFC because that's where the great quarterbacks are.
Yep.
Let's be honest. And you look at everybody kicking Lamar Jackson's butt and we're kicking Josh Allen's butt. And I mean, is it their fault that they're playing in the era of Patrick Mahomes? I mean, the person that's kept them out is Patrick Mahomes, and
you mentioned the defense because you said it here before. Kansas City did not have good receivers.
No.
I mean, Travis Kelce's great, but he's playing with shout out to Rashee Rice. He's a DFW guy, SMU kid. He looks like he's a rookie.
I mean,
he's a rookie. Right.
To grow into that position, right.
Yep. And to me, I'm fascinated by this part. If you took Patrick Mahomes, because Trent Dilfer brought this up once, and I think he's right. The game is so much different now than it was 20 years ago. If you take Patrick Mahomes and you put him in that game in 1995, and not from a scheme standpoint, but from the way the game is called standpoint, officiated, do you think he's killing everybody the way he is today?
I don't think he is. I don't think that the officiating has anything to do with his uncanny neck. Okay, his feel for the games. You know, I was arguing with somebody else today, and they were,
No, you were arguing?
I mean, his calm in the fourth quarter, his some things he has that are innate that are on Patrick Mahomes. He's one of one, and the things he does, his basketball background, his baseball background, his dad be able to throw the ball with either. I mean, just the things he does, it's just so natural to him. And I don't think that his accuracy, be able to throw the ball, go left, throw the ball deep right, doing different things, the different arm angles, has nothing to do with the rules.
No, if you go back and look at his game-winning throw, that's a hard throw to make.
Yeah,
because he's kind of off balance, his feet are in a bad spot, and it doesn't matter. And to me, the larger issue, to me, it illustrates the point. Jason Garrett talked about it. Other guys have talked about it. Play different sports. I mean, and I know some of this has to do with his dad. His dad was a terrific athlete. He was a major league pitcher for a long time. But go play different sports. Go be a shortstop. Go be whatever. Because you can see him do things, and he makes it look so easy.
He makes it look easy. He's never flustered. This team is calm. In the fourth quarter of these games, you just trust that he's going to make it happen.
Yeah, right.
And he does, and the game never speeds up for him.
And to me, the only guy who's, statistically, the only guys measured up with him is Joe Burrow. The Bengals have had success against him, and they lost in the AFC Championship game. They beat him in the AFC Championship game. They beat him in a couple of regular season games. For that reason, there's very few players who are as calm in moments like Joe Burrow, and the other one is Mahomes. All right, you went in Vegas, watched the Super Bowl. It was a fun game to watch. Who is your Super Bowl winner other than the Kansas City Chiefs? My girl Taylor Swift, Usher, whose halftime performance I think kind of got a mixed bag. I thought it was pretty good. Beyonce, who's now blonde, or my personal favorite, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon for their commercial for Dunkin' Donuts with Jennifer Lopez and Tom Brady. That ad was the extended ad.
Get the commercial out of here. Get the commercial out of here.
Outstanding. You're crazy. That ad was
Beyonce dropped an album dropped some songs in the Super Bowl, and everybody, it went to the #1 in the country charts. Okay,
here we go. Who's your winner?
She dropped the song. Taylor Swift brought people to the game. Usher was greatness. He brought Atlanta to Vegas and brought Atlanta to the world.
That's a good point. What did you think of the show? What did you think of the halftime show?
I loved it. I thought it was greatness, and I thought the people he brought out were great. I certainly loved Alicia Keys and everything about the show. So he was wonderful. I mean, it's got to be Taylor, but I
don't think it was.
You don't think it was Taylor?
No, because
she goes on the field, she kisses.
I'll tell you one. The one loser is Tony Romo. My God, I mean,
he was awful. He was awful.
They're
nervous. Or what are you talking about? They're nervous. I mean, come on, the fumble had. I mean, it's like he was killing me.
I now wonder if he's a mile in his own head worrying about all this. I mean, he doesn't need to. He's got more money than he can ever count. They gave him a 10-year contract when they didn't need to. But as I sat there, Taylor Swift, it seemed to me like CBS went out of its way not to show her. She wasn't on screen very much.
I know, but she was on the screen 54 seconds.
That was it.
And every time he caught a pass, they showed her. They just showed her for a couple of seconds.
It was just a second.
Every time Kelsey did something, they went quickly to the box and then went away from the box. Went quickly. So they showed her enough. Really, the thing about
forget it. Who's the winner?
Who won? Roger Goodell in the NFL.
Yeah, the NFL.
I mean, the thing about the Super Bowl is crazy to me because you got Jay-Z, you got Beyonce, you got,
Lady
everybody's
Gaga
there.
was there.
Shaq is there.
LeBron was there.
Everybody is close to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
It just shows you how NFL is king, Super Bowl is king. Everybody who's somebody, actors, pop stars, rap, whoever stops what they're doing,
and
they go to the Super Bowl.
I think going into that game, the fear was, Joe Buck said it, it was totally right. It's Vegas. Something crazy and stupid is going to happen. And other than the weather kind of not cooperating by Vegas standards, I guess, nothing happened. Just a fun game. Usher was great. Pretty good-looking people were there. Taylor Swift is there. It's a competitive game. There's a ton to talk about. And it's the most watched telecast ever. I didn't think anything would ever beat MASH. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I didn't think anything would ever beat the MASH series finale back in the early 80s, because that's when we had three channels to watch. Well, now we have 8 billion channels to watch, and I do wonder how much of that was driven by Taylor Swift. But I do like your shout out to the fact that Usher brought Atlanta to Vegas. That was good. The only one is like Ludacris is the one who cashed in. I'm like, dude, you've sucked for 10 years, and now you're acting there like you're Usher. I'm like, no, you're not. You had your time. Go sit in the stands. Okay, last topic, then we got to go. Clarence, I don't know if you knew this or not, but football season is over, although we do have the United States Football League coming up here at the end of March. Now what are we going to do?
It's 7 months to NFL. 7 months. What are we going to do?
Well, we've got. Here's crazy. SEC media days are in July. They're going to be in Dallas. Big 12 media days. Big 12 media days, which forever had been either in Frisco or Arlington. It's going to Vegas. So the world now is just one giant melting pot of epicenters of entertainment, I guess.
12 media days in Vegas?
They're going to do it in Vegas. Yeah, they're going to do it in live. I don't know. We're going to pay for it. Yeah. The Dallas Mavericks just made 2 big, significant trades.
6-game winning streak.
6-game winning streak. And apparently, I'm going through late onset puberty. My voice is now changing. And the Rangers, pitchers and catchers have reported in surprise Arizona. They won the World Series last year. And the Dallas Stars are in first place. So of those 3 teams, Clarence, who has a better chance to win a championship? The Rangers repeating, Dallas Stars finally breaking through and winning the Stanley Cup. They've been close the last couple of years. Or the Mavericks, which didn't make the playoffs last year, the Mavericks getting to the West Finals.
And you forgot our UFL, XFL.
Oh, that's right. The defending champion, Arlington Renegades.
They won last year. Renegades. They're back. Bob Stoops, big game Bob.
Okay, of those, what has the better chance of happening?
I want to say the Rangers, just because they're the most recent champion. I'm going to be interested in the Mavericks and see what they do in the playoffs. I really like the way Kyrie and Luka are gelling right now and the moves that they've made to get better. I think they're 9 games over 500 right now going off the break. And the Stars, it's time for the Stars to break through, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. They're in the same boat as the Mavericks in the sense that there's a lot of really good teams. And when they went to the playoffs last year, they lost to Vegas. And they're really, really good, and they're really not quite good enough. Now, they're good. They really, really are. And if you get hot, then you can get through. But, they went to the Stanley Cup final in 2000, the bubble final up in Edmonton. They got to the West Finals last year to Vegas, and they lost in Game 6 in Vegas where they lost 100-0. So if they're going to do it, there's a few players on that roster who are getting a little older. If they're going to do it, now's the time to do it. Okay, this show's been 40 minutes long. That's too much for anybody. It was good seeing you again. Candy, thanks for staying awake. Candy's our fearless producer. Pretty sure she stayed awake. And a big shout out to the great people of Window Nation for
Beyonce's country.
I can't top that. See you next week on Cowboys Overtime.